Okay, well, I have 9:30, do you? Okay, you want, good to go? Okay. Morning, everybody. How you doing? So it's 9:30, so we can get going if that suits everyone. And just regarding the agenda, before we adopt that, have a motion for that. Is there anything anybody wants to add to that? Raise your hand or shout out. I don't see any action. So can I just get a motion to adopt the agenda as it is then? See a couple hands.
So moved.
Okay, see a hand and some nods. So, okay, that's great. And the minutes, I gather everybody's had a chance to look at those. So any changes or anything to the minutes? Are they all good? I see no hands, a lot of nods. So, all right, can I get a motion on the minutes?
Move the minutes.
Okay, moved, and I see a nod, so that's done. And now we'll just move into standing items. So the first one is the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. And now we had a change in personnel here, right? So, pardon me? No, I thought that we had a retirement. Didn't, yeah, Donna Chan left, right? So this is the first meeting without Donna, and doing traffic is Sonelli? Is that right?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Donna Chan has retired from the city.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's my pleasure. My name is Sonali Hingarani. I've been with the Transportation Department for about 10 years. So going forward, it's my pleasure to be representative of the transportation team.
Well, welcome and take it away.
Great, thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be providing a brief summary of the highlights from the Transportation Safety Advisory Committee meeting. The minutes you will find in the agenda package today, so I'll just go over the highlights pertaining to the school board. There was some feedback that the committee received regarding traffic-related concerns from the Gilmore Elementary PAC. These concerns were related to drivers near the school, mostly parking and speeding issues. Staff have contacted the principal and will review the site conditions to assess further. And ICBC advised that they will also deploy Richmond RCMP Speed Watch volunteers to monitor the streets around Gilmore Elementary. Another update from the TSAC meeting was about the distracted driving campaign undertaken by ICBC in March. Police ramped up enforcement of distracted driving and community volunteers. They also conducted cell watch deployment to remind drivers to keep their eyes on the road and not on their phones. In Richmond, there were 4 such outreach events. The outreach resulted in several warning and distracted driving tickets being issued. Another update from the TSAC meeting is something that you may all have already noticed if you're traveling around the city. There is a new intersection operation at Shell Road and Williams Road, and this is because of the new traffic signals that have been installed at the end of last month, which helps to better manage traffic flow in the area. And another final item is near Spalyaquux Elementary School, a new traffic circle was installed at Barnard Drive and Lamb Road in Terra Nova. This becomes part of a series of existing physical speed deterrent devices along the stretch of Barnard Drive from Granville Avenue to River Road to facilitate lower vehicle speeds in the neighborhood. And that's my summary and updates from the TSAC meeting. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? I don't.
Move receipt.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Alexa.
No, I'm moving receipt.
Oh, okay, sure. All right, all right. So that's been moved and seconded, I gather. So we're all in favor of that. Thank you very much. Next, we have the childcare update, and I believe that's going to be Chris Duggan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have updates related to childcare in 3 areas today. The first is related to recent provincial childcare announcements. Approximately a week and a half ago, it was announced that there were additional Richmond childcare facilities that were going to be participating in the province's $10 a day childcare initiative. So as of April 1st, 3 of our city-owned facilities, Cook Road Childcare, West Canby Children's Centre, and Seismic Children's Centre have all transitioned to the $10 a day model. And those facilities are now offering care at $10 a day to the families that were already enrolled in their programs. Additional announcements from the province are expected in the near future with regards to successful applications for the Childcare BC New Spaces Grant, and we'll make sure that those get shared once they are publicly announced. City of Richmond announcements. We have recently finalized our 2021 update to the Childcare Needs Assessment and Strategy, and that was received by Richmond City Council for information at the end of March. This document highlights the city's progress on the 32 identified actions in the strategy and provides a detailed analysis of the current status of childcare in Richmond. And of particular note in this update, there was a 33% increase in licensed childcare spaces in Richmond from the period of 2016, when our initial data was collected, until December of 2021. This document is currently posted on the city's website, and we're just in the process of distributing it to our key community partners and stakeholders. Also wanted to share that May is Childcare Month in the City of Richmond and will be proclaimed as such. And the City and the Childcare Development Advisory Committee are hosting 2 events this year. A Childcare Symposium on May the 7th, Saturday morning, where we'll have 3 presentations for early childhood educators, childcare providers, and parents, as well as a children's art exhibition, which will be on display at the Breakout branch of the Richmond Public Library, starting on May the 2nd and up until May the 22nd. Both of those events are posted on our website and have been shared with all of our community partners, including those that we work with in the early years area of the school district. And finally, just a couple of school district updates that I've been involved in, knowing the Just Before program, a licensed preschool program has recently started in one of the Strong Start spaces within the school. And I know that the school district is also anxiously awaiting any news about the Childcare BC Spaces Grant. Mr. Geyer may have some additional information that he's able to provide at a later date to the team, or now. I see you've unmuted yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So we did get news last Monday from childcare, from MCFD, that our 2 applications for 50 childcare spaces at Manoa Steeves Elementary and at Maple Lane Elementary were both approved. We're going to be, we've gone out already for requests for proposals for, we're going to be looking at building these as modular facilities, so not portables, but as modular childcare facilities, and placing them on pads that were used during construction at when we were doing the seismic upgrading at Steeves and at Maple Lane. So these were pads that were engineered to support temporary portables at Maple Lane, and then at Steeves, it was the contractor's compound area that we had gravelled and compacted. So we're out for proposal, and we're very excited about this. We haven't got the documentation yet from the province, but we've been told it's going to be coming soon. So very excited, because this is a way for us to dovetail our seismic mitigation program projects when we have to have swing space for when we're moving classes out of the building while we're doing the work inside the building. We have to move them into portables. We move the portables in, we engineer the pad, and then the pad that's left over, we're now leveraging that into putting in these modular facilities. And so we're very excited about this, because it's going to set the path for future projects. We have a number of seismic upgrades that are underway that we'll be wrapping up, and this is a way that we can save money in the development of these facilities and assist the school community and the neighborhood.
And I have nothing further to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks. Any comments or questions? Well, I'll make a quick comment on the childcare spaces. I think that's fantastic and just really smart use of resources and things that have already been done. Now, when it comes to Manoa Steeves and Maple Lane, are the locations there chosen on a basis of demographics, in combination of geography, or is it more or less done because that's where you had the pads already done because of the seismic upgrading?
Thanks. Yeah, it's a combination. So what we do is our planning, our facilities planners, they touch base with Chris and her team on needs, and so what we're doing is we are leveraging the fact that the pads are there, so we're applying for those, but we're confirming the need, and then when we're making our application to the new Basis Fund, we're specifying what the target demographic is for that for those facilities. So it's a combination. I think it's safe to say that pretty much everywhere we have seismic upgrades, there is need for some form of childcare, whether it is daycare, before or after school, preschool. And in this case, these two facilities will be a combination of preschool care during the day, and then before and after school care in the mornings and afternoons. So we just make sure that we're not going to be putting facilities in where there's none needed. So like I say, it is kind of a combination.
Right. And then, the issue of portables, for decades, everybody has had their opinion about portables, but modular is a completely different thing. And modular can be very modern, very convenient, and can be a fantastic way to get things in place, relatively quickly and more affordably too. So modular is great, I think.
Yeah, and just to add, one of the reasons we've gone modular is because of speed of construction, and also the fact that you're right. If you look at some of the modular learning centers that were put up around 2011 throughout the district, those are considered modular classrooms, so they are higher end. So they're not 2x4 construction. They're actually properly insulated, better windows, shutters, that sort of thing. But one of the other reasons we're going modular is that the footings are going to be wood, treated wood foundations, but we're going to be skirting the whole thing in with what's called hardy panel concrete board. So it's going to look like a concrete foundation, and we're also going to be putting in aircraft grade aluminum ramps and stairs. And the reason we want to do that is if at any point down the road, if we need to add on to the school, or if there's something else that comes up that we need to shift the building, it's very easy to shift it somewhere else on the site. So what we're trying to do is just try to future-proof ourselves a little bit with this. And neither of these schools are targeted for closure, but if at some point, 20 years from now, the board decides they're going to close the school, we could pick up and move that facility to another site. So that's one of the things we're trying to do, is make it as multi-purpose as possible.
Yeah, and not to belabor it, but if you look at the environmental greenhouse gas aspect and the savings between not putting in a concrete foundation and having a crushed compacted foundation with wood footings, concrete's one of the, maybe even the single biggest emitter if you look at it worldwide. So that's another really good part of it. Okay, anybody else have a comment? No? Oh, Norm? Oh, sorry, your hand's up. I didn't see it, Norm. Go ahead. You're muted.
Thank you. I'm just wondering about a common problem with outdoor building, especially when there's like a little skirt around the bottom. Rats tend to like to nest in the open spaces. What kind of ideas do we have about that?
Through the chair, what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be paving the area around and just underneath the skirting, so that we're going to land the skirting right on top of the pavement. That way you can't have critters burrowing underneath to get in. So yeah, no, we think of everything when it comes to these kinds of buildings, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Come to my house and help me out. Okay, can we move receipt of that then too, Alexa, or someone? Thanks. I see a hand and another hand, so that's moved. Thank you very much. And we will move on to the next one, and that's the Joint City and District Program Committee, and that looks like it's Elizabeth.
Good morning, thank you. Both Rick and I are here, and I have nothing to add to the minutes, but we're happy to respond to any questions that you may have in regards to them.
Anybody have any questions or comments about that? Okay, I guess we'll move receipt of that, or we already did the minutes, but we'll move on then. Number 4 is student mental health support, and that looks like it's Jane McMillan, Rav, and Marie.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm going to be handing this off very quickly to Rav and Marie, but please let me take a moment to introduce Rav Johal, who's our Director of Instruction for Student Services and Analytics, and Marie Ratcliffe, who is our District Administrator for Student Services, who are going to be sharing some information around student mental health supports in Richmond. I believe, Rav, are you sharing your screen for the slideshow for this?
Yes, thanks, Jane. I am just working through that process right now, just getting that set up. Okay, does this work for everyone? I just want to make sure people aren't seeing the notes.
We're seeing the notes.
Seeing the notes? Okay. Okay, I will just reset that. Okay, apologies for the delay, and good morning, everyone. Great to be here, and I know Marie and I look forward to sharing an update around mental health to Council Board. So, like I mentioned, I am joined by Marie Ratcliffe, a District Administrator with Learning Services, and we're here to just provide an update around ongoing student mental health initiatives in our district. So our intentions are to really provide an overview of district initiatives in the areas of mental health, student mental health, including social emotional learning, mental health literacy, and trauma-informed practice, as well as other areas as well. Now, we do recognize that throughout the district, there are staff working in a range of roles that are supporting student mental health and well-being, and we note that there's a lot of importance for collaboration with parents, guardians, and caregivers. And furthermore, in Richmond, we are very fortunate to have a network of community partners that work with school and district staff to support our diverse student population. We're also mindful that over the past 2 years with COVID, we've collectively had to navigate some extraordinary circumstances, and particularly when you're considering the mental health and well-being of everyone in our school and communities, so that's students, staff, and parents. And as a result, our presentation this morning is through a lens that acknowledges our COVID realities. Now, we do ground our mental health work and initiatives in the board's strategic plan. And typically, when we look at our strategic plan, this work resides in Priority 1, Inspired Learners, and Priority 2, Equity and Inclusion. So collectively, we're providing a wide range of mental and physical health programs and supports for student well-being, which is key to this work. And this includes, like I mentioned, liaising outside the district with community partners. We do know that there's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to supporting student mental health. It's important to take an intersectional approach, honoring the range of backgrounds, lived realities, as well as experiences within our diverse Richmond communities, particularly as it pertains to mental health and well-being. So with that, I will just pass it over to Marie.
Thank you, Rav. So I'd like to start talking a little bit about exactly what is mental health. We
when we talk about that quite a lot, and sometimes we don't really define it very well. But mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being, and it affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. And it also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence right through our adulthood and senior lives. It impacts everything that we do, how we manage situations, and how resilient we are when we face stress, which we all know is an inevitable part of our life. We know that there's many factors that impact mental health that can be taught, and we know that for students and adolescents, that's a period of optimal learning. And so we work hard to support our students in the development of mental health habits and competencies that will lay a strong foundation for their future. The research tells us that mental health-related skills and strategies that are taught during childhood and adolescence they're particularly sticky skills. They kind of stick with our brains, and therefore they positively impact students as they become young adults and even later. At 45, you might not remember how to balance a chemical equation, but you might remember that teacher who told you, take a deep breath and go take a walk outside, and how that strategy helped center you while you were stressed. Within our district, our mental health strategy adheres to 5 principles that are right here on the screen, and I'll speak to each of those a little more in depth. Those principles are that the interventions that we use are tiered or layered, that they're responsive, that they're research-based, that they're aligned with provincial initiatives, and every one of them requires a multi-year implementation. This is complex work that takes time and very, very careful consideration. The next slide, please, Rav. So when we talk about a response being tiered or layered, we often use the RTI, which is the response to intervention triangle or pyramid, to describe this approach. Were we to arrange all of our students in this format, you can see that the largest number is at the lower part, and there's a very small number at the very top. Generally speaking, the large group at the lower part of the pyramid, between 80 and 85% of our students, don't require intensive support in order to develop habits and mindsets that are needed for good mental health, while the small group at the very, very top of the triangle do. So all of our students benefit from layer or tier 1 interventions. Those are considered to be universal supports because all students participate in them. Some examples are social and emotional learning, often called SEL, school-wide programs such as Friends for Life, and EASE, which is kind of a new one that's come in quite recently, everyday anxiety strategies for educators, the mental health literacy that we've been implementing in all of our grade 9 physical and health education classes, and positive behavior interventions that you've likely seen at many of our schools. Other universal interventions that you're likely familiar with is that many of our schools have been involved in innovation grants in the areas of social and emotional learning, and several of these schools have been involved multiple years with these grants, and so have been making really, really strong progress there. The second tier or layered supports for about 10 to 15% of our students with specialized and small group interventions. And those are supports such as school-based teams, school counselors, adolescent mental health support workers, the area counselor team, and our mental health consultant, who are deployed to support this group of students as needed. And then Tier 3, which includes about 5 to 10% of our students, is very targeted and has very differentiated supports, such as alternative programs. Our district-based team gets involved there, the inclusion support team, mental health clinicians, connection to Foundry and some of our community agencies, and coming soon, the integrated child and youth teams, which Rav will talk to you about a little more later. So in our next slide, we know that there are several populations of students that are particularly vulnerable when it comes to mental health. and we have particular strategies and responses to forge the best outcomes for those students. So children and youth in care, those are children who are living in foster care, and each child and youth in care within our district has a school-based mentor who maintains a close relationship with the student and supports, among other things, their social and emotional development. The alternative programs have access to youth workers and mental health clinicians and also have much smaller class sizes to support these students' mental health needs. The Indigenous students in our district have access to a teacher and a worker who support connections with First Nations cultures and teachings, and many schools also have a volunteer staff member who serves as an in-school advocate, and we call those Kwamayatham, which is a Hunkaminam word. These connections, we know, have a protective factor for this group of students. Students with diverse needs and disabilities have support from the inclusion support staff, resource teachers and EAs who are well-versed in mental health and SEL. And then finally, students in the LGBTQ2+ community find support and care and community promoted by the school district's SOGI policy. The support, care, and community are very protective factors for mental health for this group specifically. So when we talk about responsive, as we've developed a mental health strategy within our district, we've relied really heavily on some excellent sources of data. Through the Ministry of Education, the student satisfaction surveys help us to understand the experiences of our students. The Human and Early Learning Partnership that we have with UBC supports us with the MDI, the Middle Years Developmental Instrument, the EDI, the Early Developmental Instrument, and the CHEC, which is the Childhood Experiences Questionnaire. And these all provide us with population-level information on many different aspects of development, including mental and physical health factors. Another questionnaire that we use is the Mccrary Health Survey that comes to us every few years from Children's Hospitals. And all of this data helps us to better understand who our students are and what their needs are. So, as you know, mental health is an important topic in our community, and I know that daily, each of us who works in this area, we receive many inquiries from individuals and companies who are very keen to be part of our journey towards good mental health for our students. And because of this, we have pledged several years ago that any intervention that we use in our district will be research-based. Good quality resources that are known to be highly effective are the ones that we choose for our students. For the SEL resources we use, we ensure that they are vetted by CASEL, which is the Collaboration for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, and their graphic is the one that's right in the middle there. So CASEL is quite a well-known institution. And the mental health literacy that we've been working with now for several years has been extensively studied at both Dalhousie and UBC. And so we know that they're effective. We know that they're very good quality. And the final principle I'd like to address is the importance of aligning with provincial initiatives and directions and the concept of multi-year implementation. The RACE strategy is a provincial initiative that I'm sure you're all familiar with. Often that was the most kind of public-facing piece of that was the Pink Shirt initiative. Recently we've been implementing the EASE framework, and that is everyday anxiety strategies for educators. So we've been working hard with that. We know that good quality implementation of any initiative requires time and patience, and we know that it will take multiple years for these strategies to be fully implemented. And finally, the last initiative that we'll share is a Pathway to Hope, a multi-pronged and complex and very well-researched vision for mental health in our province that includes the Integrated Child and Youth Teams, or ICY, that Rav will share more details on in a moment.
Thank you, Marie. So mental health literacy is an ongoing initiative established in our district over the past few years, and this is a specific study that is a partnership with UBC, University of Alberta, as well as mentalhealthliteracy.org. And this research is timely, just with respect to our ongoing awareness of mental health, as well as student well-being and student experiences during COVID. Making mental health understandable and recognizable for kids, families, and educators is really at the core of this research, which is now at a stage where we can review the effectiveness of the mental health and high school curriculum guide that's utilized by teachers. We do have a study that's ongoing currently in our semester 2 grade 9 physical and health education classes this year. And there are macro and micro aspects of the study. So all grade 9 students are participating who are taking the PHE course this semester, as well as a subset of Mandarin as well as Cantonese speaking students, which aligns nicely with our strategic plan in terms of equity and inclusion, so that we're looking to enhance how we support students from diverse populations. The outcomes from the project will provide solid evidence on the effectiveness of the mental health and high school curriculum guide, and to inform us as to how to develop effective strategies to accommodate youth social, emotional, and mental health needs. Now, this next slide wasn't included in the package that you provided in advance of this meeting. This is something that we've just confirmed in the last week. So something that we're really quite excited about is that during Mental Health Week, May 2nd to May 8th, that we're having a parent session on May the 4th, and that will start off with a student panel. So students from our secondary schools who are very passionate and are part of our mental health youth advisory will be speaking to parents from 7 to 7:30. And then the real focus of this evening is to really support parents and their learning around mental health literacy. And then we'll have breakout sessions at 7:30. So one will be in English, one will be in Chinese. The English session led by Andrew Baxter, and the Chinese session led by Dr. Sean, Dr. Wei. And all three, along with Wendy Carr and Connie Easton, our counseling coordinator and one of our staff members who's really involved in mental health work, have been leading this initiative over the last few years. So again, really the goal of the Parent Mental Health Literacy Session is to help parents and families improve their understanding of mental health and mental disorders, reduce stigma surrounding mental illness, encourage help seeking, and promote mental health. So that's something that we're quite excited to have in 3 weeks' time. Marie did mention the ICY teams that are coming also to Richmond. So Integrated Child and Youth Teams is an initiative within the province's Pathway to Hope strategy for mental health and substance use services in the province. There'll be teams in 5 regions to start, one in each health authority across the province, with Richmond being among the first jurisdictions in the province to have an ICY team. We are hoping to have 2 of the 4 ICY teams up and running by September, and it is an evolving partnership with the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions, the Ministry of Child and Family Development, Vancouver Coastal Health, Boundary BC, as well as the Ministry of Education and our school district. And the hope is really in the next 2 to 3 years is that there will be ICY teams in every school district across the province, but we're one of the fortunate ones to start off with their establishment. As you can see on this slide, there are 4 main aims of ICY teams, and as you read through those aims, I think it's important to know that traditionally Richmond has been underserved with mental health resources. Some of this can be attributed to stigma within our diverse communities. There are some populations that are not comfortable acknowledging or discussing mental health issues and challenges. As a result, mental health concerns from the community have tended to be underreported. Due to being underreported, we have been underserved with resources, and unfortunately this has led to significant wait times for children, youth, and families here in Richmond. That being said, there's significant potential with ICY in terms of taking an intersectional approach to mental health and substance use, recognizing our diverse and racialized communities. So what's different before ICY teams? The way things worked before was that young people and their families had to tell their story to different service providers and had to figure out where to go. And as you can note from this visual, child, youth, and family had to navigate a myriad of services. And this model prior to ICY teams makes it very challenging for children, youth, and families to receive ongoing and appropriate support from service providers that aren't necessarily aligned and working collaboratively. Once ICY teams are established, there are streamlined, more efficient processes and better coordination of care so that young people get timely access to a full set of services and supports. So in this diagram, you can see that there is wraparound service with multidisciplinary teams serving children, youth, and their families. ICY team development is informed by the needs of the community, so solutions are co-created with multiple stakeholder groups in each community. There's a multicultural and culturally safe supports that are available through ICY teams, including Indigenous positions and other positions to support diverse populations. So this will be unique to each community based on the demographic. We know that some children, youth, and families feel safer, more welcome, and more likely to ask for help in a community-based setting. So this is intended to be an outbound service model where ICY team members will meet children, youth, and families where they are most comfortable. So the teams do make it easier for children and youth to connect to the care that they need and where they need it and when they need it. So in places and spaces where they feel most comfortable. So that could be in a school, at home, other community centers, a park, a coffee shop, in nature, or virtually. So again, that's where the team's mandate will really be to work with children, youth, and families where they feel most comfortable, and they work towards culturally safe, distinction-based, as well as approaches that are gender, diversity, and trauma-informed as well. So just on behalf of Marie, Jane, and I, Learning Services' main responsibility in the mental health realm is to support the development of good mental health habits and mindset in students, and there is thorough, well-researched effect that Marie spoke to earlier. And when teachers teach about mental health literacy and use various social-emotional learning opportunities, not only do the students benefit, but so do teachers and other staff in the classroom. So you can imagine that if you're teaching mindfulness to a grade 2-3 class, the grade 2-3s develop more mindful ways of being, and by explicitly teaching the techniques, you know, as a teacher or as a staff member, you also become more mindful. So thanks for the time, but just want to leave it open if there are any questions or comments.
I have a question.
Sure, thanks, Trustee Golson.
Oh, hey, thank you. First of all, of course, I agree. Mental health is really important. I'm really happy we have all these initiatives. You know, I can only hope that they result in happier, motivated students to enter our society. That's very positive. I have 3 questions about the presentation. The first one refers back to the pyramid, which broken up into 3 sections. Now, I imagine there are students which will sort of straddle two layers of the pyramid. Would they receive a little bit of one and a little bit of the other type of approach?
Marie, are you able to respond to that question, please?
Yes, of course. The RTI triangle, that response to intervention triangle, is really just a bit of a framework for us. Students are definitely, often moving between layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, and it can get very, very blurry. And so we do very much differentiate depending on the student and what those needs are. Yeah, the changing needs.
Thank you very much.
I'll just add one statement to that as well, as you referenced, is the layers. So it isn't that you have one or the other, that you'll be a part of the tier 1, and if you need additional support, that's layered on top of, not to replace. You don't leave one tier to join another, that it's layers of support.
Okay, thank you. And with the breakout sessions, there'll be English and Chinese. So just to confirm, Chinese refers to Mandarin?
Well, that would be, Chinese as a language, Mandarin is, kind of a subset within there, but we're using the term Chinese for the session that will be led by Dr. Shaw and Dr. Yifeng Wei.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And I guess the last thing is, I heard you that our community being described, a large part is racialized. Just want to confirm, racialized means non-white?
That's how I've used that term. Is that typically racialized would be, sometimes we've often used the term people of color as well recently. My personal preference is I've used the term racialized to as kind of interchangeably with that term.
So that's a yes?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Goldstein.
Yeah.
Okay, I see a couple hands up on my screen. Heather, you're up first.
Thank you. Thank you for this really rich presentation. One of the things that kept coming up to me was the importance of obviously partnership, community partners. And it brought back actually a wonderful memory for me as a parent with the community centers for youth and teenagers and the programs that they used to run. There were dances, just opportunities to go and play pool and things like that. And then I've been out of that one obviously for a while, and back to now the childhood early learning, the drop-in centers. With COVID, we talked about like the COVID realities and things like that. Those opportunities were so fabulous because the connections are happening with other kids, with the leaders of the program. And I'm just wondering, this is probably unfair to maybe I'm not expecting sort of a report, but once we're past kind of this next step in the pandemic, would you see that still happening for the teens and things like that at community centers?
I think it's a great question, Trustee Larson. I mean, I would anticipate that as we, evolve into our new normal, that things would be opening up. And we do know that specifically for our, teenagers and high school students, that they've really had to go without a lot of opportunities in the last couple of years. So I would anticipate that things would open up. Having worked previously as a principal at Hugh Boyd, I know that we had a really strong partnership with West Richmond Community Center that would offer all sorts of programs at lunch, after school, times when there's natural breaks. So I would anticipate that would resume to how it used to be for our teenage population.
Thank you, because they were excellent as far as I'm concerned with the community centers. Just wonderful. So thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Alexa?
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, thank you for this presentation. Just a couple comments and questions, actually. Thank you for the workshop the other day that was put on, having challenging conversations with your child. I think that was organized by the school district, and I think it was really valuable. I don't know that there was tons of people on the call, on the webinar, but I think it was really valuable, and I think if it was taped, maybe it's an opportunity for other people to take a look at it, have a good understanding of where their child is growing mentally and emotionally, and how soon they're ready to have some of these conversations. A couple of questions. So children and youth in care, how many have we got in Richmond?
That's actually part of my portfolio, and it moves between 60 and 70 students over the last couple of years.
Okay, and that's kindergarten to grade 12?
That's right.
Okay, and then there was talk about the innovation grants, the social and emotional learning. So we've been doing it for a little bit of time now. Do we have any data on the success or learning of that yet? Or is that coming forward?
We do. A couple of our schools have been quite heavily involved in this innovation grant process in the area of social emotional learning over the last little while. And we are kind of, we're getting some measurement tools there to kind of see the difference that we're making. So we don't have results yet, but they're coming very soon.
Okay, thank you. What are we doing for the teachers' mental health? I know it was talked about that teaching mindfulness supports the teachers, On the flip side, like I know certainly, one of the teachers at the school last year was almost totally checked out with the whole COVID thing and everything else, right? Like, so what are we doing to support their mental health so that they're actually in a position to really be an effective role model teacher of some of these skills?
I don't know if Marie, if you want to share a little bit about some of the sessions that have been offered. I'll just jump in to start to say that our HR department is quite heavily involved in this, of course, because within learning services, our support is for building capacity in staff and supporting students. The Foundations of a Healthy Workplace has a number of initiatives that have been designed to support educators in all roles in our district, as well as non-educators, all staff, to develop and support them, as you've identified, in their own mental health and well-being as we've moved through pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. And then our teams within learning services recently offered a session for administrators, school-based administrators, who are supporting their staff on how they refuel themselves as they work to support their staff. And I don't know, Marie and Rav, if you want to add anything to that.
I can add a little. I know that the research through Dalhousie and also local research with Kim Schonert-Reichel shows that anytime a teacher is engaged with teaching social and emotional learning, their own mental health actually improves. So without a doubt, COVID definitely took a toll on many people. I am sure you can all imagine a person, you can hold a person in your mind right now who COVID was hard on. And there's no denying that people's ability to respond to stress like that can be very, very different, very variable. But I'm quite sure if you take a look at the research that came out of Dalhousie, you will see that there's definitely a benefit. But of course, the population is varied, and so it's you're not going to be able to catch everyone, for sure.
No, for sure not. And thank you. And just another comment, following on to what Heather was saying a few minutes ago about the teen programs at the community centers. Certainly I was involved in a teen committee back at South Arm years ago, and it was only just a few years ago that I found out that one of the guys that used to come to the teen committee with us on a regular basis, he had a really violent home that he was basically trying to stay away from, and it came out years later. But just looking back and seeing the value of those programs, that safe place for people to be, so they don't have to go home necessarily if it's not a safe place to be. So on our side, the city side, I'm sure we'll do everything we can to support those kind of programs.
Thanks, Alexa. And Elizabeth?
Thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to provide a couple of comments on those programs and services that have continued throughout the pandemic across our city. And except for in the very most extreme restrictions through the pandemic, we've continued to offer a wide variety of programs for our children and youth. As one example, we certainly prioritize the continued offering of our before and after school care programs so that those children could continue to be connected to friends, could be connected to their youth leaders, and have a safe place to be cared for before and after school. And that's just one example. So we've been there throughout the pandemic, and we will continue to be there, and because we do realize the important role that those programs play.
Okay, great. And Kim? You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the school district team who presented on this topic. It's a very valuable topic. We're in the process of updating our youth strategy, and Rob, I believe you are sitting on that advisory committee. Chris and a couple of other staff from the city are leading this update. And I think as we're moving forward, how we collaboratively work together will be really important. And any information that you can share with us to help to inform some of the actions within the strategy will be really helpful for us. I know that mental health was an area that did come up through some of the research that was done and the interviews and the focus groups. So we're really interested in looking at how we address this through the update of the strategy and how it informs some of our programs and services as we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And sorry.
Go ahead. No,
sorry. No, thanks, Kim. I know that the collaboration is ongoing, and it's always good to have conversations because we're serving the same youth between city initiatives as well as the school district. And we have data through the student learning survey and other data points that we're able to share. And I think for us it really always resonates about kids being connected to trusted adults, and whether that's within the school and sometimes at the neighboring community center, it's an important partnership to continue to foster.
Okay, thanks. Alexa, is your hand back? Oh, sorry. Alexa, is your hand back?
It is. Sorry to belabor the point. I had one more question for Marie, if she's able to. So when we think about our youth in care, then we think about our youth aging out of care, and I guess that goes for maybe 5-6 years after they've aged out. And it seems to me that we don't have a specific, say, housing for youth coming out of care. And I'm wondering sort of how many that cohort would be sort of in that 5 years out. So if we have 60 to 70 in, would we sort of have 20 or 30 that have just aged out?
I don't think it would be that high a number.
Okay.
Because that 60 to 70 is over 13 different grades.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering because I know we have a lot of, different affordable housing things, opportunities that are coming, and is this something that we should be working towards to have youth aging out of care housing specifically in Richmond? Is this a need for us, and is this something we should be working on? Because certainly that's going to weigh on your mental health too, knowing that you're going to get tossed out of the system and you potentially, there's the abyss ahead of you, right?
Okay, thanks. And Scott?
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Just as a follow-up to Councillor Liu's comment there, I would very much reinforce the need for that. In my previous life, I was a youth worker who worked with kids who were aging out of care. And I think that's a long time ago, but I think the problem continues to exist where all these supports are in place, and then all of a sudden, to an extent, I think they feel like they're tossed out. So anything I think that agencies can do to support kids as they transition into a less structured environment is crucial. So thanks for surfacing that.
Okay. Is there an agency we should be trying to connect with as the city to try and connect those dots of our affordable housing? We've got so many affordable housing and spaces coming forward. Is there one that we should be trying to direct, or a group that we should be trying to maybe connect with to help move that forward, and some grants to tie into that, obviously?
Through the chair, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know, Jane or Rav or Marie, whether you do, and if not, we would be happy to look at that and provide that response back, Councillor Liu.
Go ahead, Marie.
I'd like to kind of suggest that MCFD would be a very strong partner there because they have a very good handle on the numbers, and also the delegated Aboriginal Authority, VACFAS, because they also support those children, youth in care. So I think those two agencies would likely be your go-tos.
VACFAS?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And further to Marie's comment, there's also been some discussion, I know, earlier with the development of the city's homelessness strategy around youth that were in care. So I can take that back to the team. We can have some further discussion on kind of what are those actions and where the status is.
Okay, thank you. And then I can loop back with you on whether or not we need a referral from our end to start pushing that forward.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Because that was a good conversation. Yeah, that's a very good point about, like all care, mental health care, as well as a continuum. And so when people do age out or pass through whatever program they might be in, it's important that they have other resources. And, it's not just students. adults come into mental health issues at different stages in their life depending on what happens in your life. So it can happen at all different ages. I know we're talking about students here, so that's great, because historically I've just found through life that mental wellness or mental health is something that's been under-resourced, under-recognized, and we've mentioned different cultural aspects to it as well. So the timely intervention with adequate resources, I've seen many times how it just makes a huge difference in an individual's life. And when it makes a difference in their life, it impacts their family and friends, and that impacts the whole community. So it's a great discussion, and I'm glad that the school district is moving forward with this. It was really good. And if we could just move receipt of this report, if somebody could raise their hand for that, that would be great. I see a couple hands, so thank you very much. And we can move on to the next item, which is, looks like the superintendent's report. So Scott.
Great, thanks very much, Chairperson. I've got just 4 brief items that I'd like to provide an update on. First is the board's operating budget for the next school year. So like many BC school districts, our district is currently facing a shortfall. For us, it's approximately $3.9 million for the 2022-23 school year. So part of the shortfall was addressed last year when the board made a number of ongoing reductions. But the pandemic has resulted in continuing lower enrollments in our international education program. And this has had a significant impact on the board's net revenue and has frankly exacerbated the shortfall. So the district is in the process right now of examining every service and supply account, as well as looking at where potential staffing reductions could occur. The board is currently engaged in its public consultation process, which will include a committee of the whole meeting on April 27th. That's the regularly scheduled board meeting, where members of the public can attend and certainly share their perspectives on the proposed reductions. And then the board will be voting on the final budget at the end of May at the public board meeting. So I just wanted to put that out there. There is information on the board's, on the school district's website about this as well. Briefly, a comment on mask use. I think most folks are aware that following spring break, masks became no longer mandatory in schools, and it is now an individual choice for students and staff. We haven't done any formal monitoring or surveying at all, but we are informally sort of touching bases with our principals to see what mask use is looking like. And what we're seeing is a huge variety of use across the district. Some schools are reporting up to 80% between student and staff's continued mask use. Others are seeing, frankly, a minimal number of folks, perhaps 20, 25% who are continuing to wear a mask. I think the most important component to this discussion is that people appear to be very respectful of those with different views regarding masks. There was some concern that perhaps there would be some conflict as there was earlier in the pandemic, but people have been very good from all reports. So we're grateful for that. Graduation events, I think I mentioned earlier that we were moving in a direction of hoping that we would be able to plan in-person graduation events, and we are at that place. I'm very, very pleased to share. So all schools will be proceeding with in-person valedictory ceremonies in May and June, and staff, students, and invited guests will all be able to attend in person. So first time in 2 years that we've been able to do that, actually since 2019. So we're obviously very happy to see that happening for this particular group of kids and families. And then finally, just an update on our anti-racism report. I know this has come forward to this committee in the past. The report will be coming to the public meeting of the board on April 27th. It's going to be a busy meeting. And that report will provide a summary of the information that was collected by the consultants who were hired to work with the community to engage their experience or to gauge their experiences around racism. It'll also provide a set of recommendations moving forward for the board's consideration. So once the board determines how it wants to approach those recommendations, an action plan will be developed and approved by the board. And district staff will share that plan, obviously, with city staff, and then I would propose that we'll bring an update to a future council board meeting as well as things move forward. So, Chairperson, that concludes my report. I would be happy to try to respond to any questions that might come up.
Sure, thanks. Any questions or comments? Don't see any hands shooting up on my screen. So thanks a lot, Scott. That was very helpful. One comment I just had, you said $3.9 million for your upcoming budget, I think is what you said. So just percent-wise, is that like 1%, 1.5%? What is that of your budget?
So our budget is approximately $220 million.
Okay. You leave the math up to me, all you educators, and you're leaving the math up to me. Okay, that's fine.
Yes, I am.
I'll work it out later. Get my wife to work it out for me.
You know, sorry, Chairperson, the Secretary Treasurer is on this call, and I don't know, Ms. Wang, if you're listening and able to provide the exact percentage. I've got my calculator out here.
Sounds like I wasn't far off with 1.5, but
1.7%.
hey, okay. All right, thanks. I know it sounds like a small amount, but we've all been in those shoes probably with budgets, and it's still significant when you look at what your discretionary spending is. So anyway, if there's no other questions or comments, okay, the next thing on the agenda is any future agenda items that anybody wants to mention now? Okay, I don't see any hands shooting up on that. So the next committee meeting date, I'm not sure if you have, I know Sandra had some dates in mind last time we met. It seems like it was about 2 to 3 months in between meetings, but 3 months probably wouldn't work. Oh, thanks. What would you guys suggest? And Evangel, feel free to weigh in here too, because I mean, it would be, obviously June would be a couple months from now, but I don't know what your timing is there for the school board with June. I don't think July and August are in the mix. So it seems like it would be June or September in my mind. So do you guys want to think about it, or do you want to make a decision now? You could probably talk to Sandra and.
I'm okay with that.
Is that okay, Evangel, if we just take it under advisement and we'll get back to the actual date? You don't need it decided now, right? Okay. Is that fair for everybody? Okay. All right, so we'll communicate back and forth about the next date. So that's to be announced. And now, if everybody's okay with that, we'll just call for an adjournment of the open meeting and have a mover for that and a seconder. So we can do that. And I'll just call the, well, I should call the closed meeting to order in the open, but just turn off the live stream. Okay, thanks. So we'll call that to order, and as everybody knows, the closed meeting to the public is in compliance with the Community Charter, Section 90, and there's a